now Euro 2020 is over. It was a year late because of the pandemic, but Italy are the champions. The game against England last night decided the destiny of the championship, and all the hype before the game in England was about football coming home and about how wonderful Giles Southgate and his team were. But on the night, I believe true champions emerged, a really outstanding team that now is unbeaten in 34 matches, managed by Roberto Mancini, and it's something I think Italy will be very proud of indeed. And we're joined now by John Giles to discuss the game, the championship, and first of all, John, to say that it was a gripping final for all of us who are watching. For one reason or another, we might have favoured Italy, for example, or England, but there was a lot on the line, and the game itself didn't disappoint.
No. Well, I think the tournament generally, Eamon, after the opening games, has been really, really good.
Yes.
At a time when everybody needed a bit of enjoyment and getting the football back. So it's been really, really good, and I think the final lived up to its reputation and promise of the actual tournament. Yeah, it was really, really good.
Okay, now, John, as we know from our own experiences, football analysis can be tricky, and we'll come to that in time. The first question about last night's game I want to ask you is, as soon as I saw the teams, John, I noticed that Trippier, a fullback, was in the team. They already had a right back, Kyle Walker, in the team, so Trippier was there not to play fullback. He replaced Saka, young 19-year-old kid who had done really well, a good attacking player, who'd done well when he'd had a chance to play in the tournament. So that was a defensive move from Gareth Southgate. My impression right up to that point was throughout the tournament, Southgate's team selections were conservative. In other words, he wasn't taking chances with talented players, for example, Grealish or Jadon Sancho, or indeed Phil Foden, who wasn't fit last night. However, when I saw the team sheet, I thought, hello, what's this all about? And I think you did as well.
Yeah, well, it didn't make sense to me, Eamon, and it's not trying to be wise after the event, but if you put Trippier in as the two fullbacks and then you got the three central defenders, I mean, that's something he hasn't done, certainly on a consistent basis in this thing, which means he's looking at the opposition.
Yeah.
And I think you should respect the opposition, Eamon, but you shouldn't be guided by them. You have your own team and that's what you do. That's what you do. This is what we do best. This is my best team, and that's it. Okay, you respect the opposition, you know the good points, and you plan for that as well. But putting Trippier in, and I think you alluded to it there, it sacrificed a midfield player.
Yes.
Or certainly a forward player.
Yes. And Saka was one option. Grealish would have been another option. Sancho, who plays on the right, Sancho would have been another option, a much more positive option, and he didn't take that option, which meant effectively they'd 7 defenders on the field.
Yeah, and it's man. You see, if you look at him from the start, Southgate, I mean, he never played the same team 2 matches running. I don't think so. No. I mean, the first team he picked, they had Trippier and I think Shaw.
No, Trippier played left back.
That's right, yeah.
And Shaw was
Walker.
out. And Walker played right back.
Yeah. Now, the next match, you had two full-backs in.
Yeah.
2 new full-backs in.
That's right.
Now, my take on playing football, Eamon, and management, is that you get to know your best team as quickly as you possibly can, and you play them together as much as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Because every match you learn something from. And he's been in the job for 5 years. So if you make the fullbacks he does what you do with the fullbacks early on, then in my opinion, it's a wing and a prayer.
Yeah.
You haven't practiced it. Now, on the final, was a real wing and a prayer. It brings Trippier back into the team to sacrifice one of the midfield players in a position in midfield where there is no doubt that, in my opinion, the strongest part of the Italian team was midfield.
Yeah. Yeah, Verratti, Jorginho and Chiesa.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
Chiesa
Sorry,
Barella in there.
Barella.
They had Barella in there. So that was it didn't make sense. I couldn't believe the team actually when I saw it, and I'm not trying to be wise after the event, but Italy's midfield definitely was the best midfield players to run the game in the whole competition, in my opinion.
Now,
and he sacrificed a midfield player for an extra defender.
Right.
And they were totally outplayed in the middle of the field. After the first 15 minutes, Eamon.
Yes.
There's only one team in it, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Only one team in it. And they were good. Really, really good.
Right. Let me take you back to the second minute when Trippier got forward, crossed a beautiful ball, and Luke Shaw scored really great goal. A half volley on the run, 1-0 up after 2 minutes. In hindsight, it's probably the worst thing that could have happened to England, John, because they decided to sit on that lead.
Well, it shows you what can happen in football, Eamon. I mean, the way he picked the team actually worked for that particular goal.
Yep.
But the game, as we know, is over 90 minutes.
Yep.
And ultimately, he paid the price for that particular decision, having looked very, very good early on, because it was a good goal and it was a well-taken goal. And I think they were on top for the first 15 minutes. But after that, Italy were very good and were the team to win, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and one of the things, there's many things to say in favour of Italy throughout the tournament, but one of the things to say about how they dealt with going a goal down after 2 minutes in what was effectively an away game in front of an English crowd, they had to drag themselves back into the game, and they had to do it slowly, they had to do it intelligently, they had to get hold of the ball and be prepared to pass their way back into the game. And by 20 minutes in, Italy now had 60-40 possession, and they were probing, asking questions.
Well, they had, I think, first of all, Eamon, I think if you look at these teams, they've been pretty much the same team since they started. They've had one or two injuries, I know. But the midfield from the start, with Verratti and Jorginho in particular, Barella came into it as well, were good. You know, I doubted them because I didn't think they'd have enough firepower, Eamon, up front. Yeah. And they got enough to win the matches, obviously. But they were always good at the back and in midfield. I think they had the best midfield in the competition. Yes. So when they lost the goal early on, yesterday, actually in the first couple of minutes, as we know, there was no panic about them, as you say. No. Because they knew they had, the likes of Verratti, they're all their life doing what they do, and Jorginho doing what they do, which is to get on the ball, play, regardless of the score. Here we go, we're going to play, this is our game, this is what we're going to do. And that's what they do. And ultimately, in over the 90 minutes or the 80-odd minutes that was left, they dominated the game, particularly from the middle of the field.
Yeah, and just to paint a picture, which I'm sure you'll recognise, about 30 minutes in, there was a snapshot. Italy had the ball. Bonucci actually had the ball. One of their heroes on the night, defender who scored the equalising goal. Bonucci had the ball, and I looked at the picture, and there were 10 England shirts behind the ball. Nobody, including Harry Kane, and they were deep, John. They were like a traditional Italian side. There was 10 of the home team behind the ball, and that picture repeated itself many, many times. So by half an hour in, it was a question of, could Italy break them down? They hadn't subsequently had a shot.
No, but again, you control. I always said, to players, I have my own opinion playing football. There's only one ball on the pitch. You know, you can talk about all the tactics in the world, but it's the people that control the ball the most. Yeah. Will have most of the game. And as you say with England, that's why in the midfield at Italy and the backs, they played. They never stopped playing, No. They didn't panic in any way. And obviously, if you're going to lose a goal, the best time to lose was early on, because it gives you plenty of time to get back. And England then probably went a bit defensive in what they do, but they didn't have the players in the middle of the field. No. Rice played well in a certain way, Eamon, which was to make his runs and go past people and all that. But there's no combination between him and Phillips in controlling the game the way midfield players should be controlling the game. No. And it was only a matter of time then before Italy caught up with them in the general play, because if you don't control it in midfield, Eamon, it's very hard to control the game, as you know. Certainly the Italians didn't panic in any way. Verratti got on the ball a lot. So did Giorgian, and between them there was a pair between them that could connect together and get it going again for them. So it was a good performance by Italy, not to panic, to get on with the game, keep playing, keep doing the right things, and that's what they did. And then in England, in my opinion, with Rice and Phillips, aren't the type of players that get a grip of the ball.
No.
You know, they do certain things and they do certain things well, but they don't have that ability to get to see the danger. Here we go, I get on the ball, little 1-2 here, little 1-2 there. They don't have that, and ultimately Italy caught up with them and dominated them.
There was no point in the game, John, where the tempo was right for England. They were never setting a tempo. They were never playing with the ball with any intensity. And Italy were. Italy set the tempo, they decided. And there was one player in particular you picked out very early in the tournament. And he hasn't always started for Italy, Chiesa. He's a super player. He plays for Juventus. He's 23. He's a hell of a player, John. He had to go off injured very late in the day. I think he went off about 86 minutes, but he put in a mighty shift and he was always a threat.
Yeah, he was the biggest threat for them, Eamon.
Yeah.
You know, it's from the time he came in. The first time I saw him come on as a sub, and I think he scored on the day. But I think he was in the team from that time on.
Yeah.
And he always looked their biggest threat.
Yeah.
He could carry the ball. He could shoot with both feet and that. But you're talking about the intensity of it, Eamon, in a match. But again, if you go back, and I know I'm repeating myself now, unless you have it in midfield, Eamon.
Yep.
You don't have it anywhere. Fullbacks can't do it.
No.
Centre forwards can't do it because they're all relying on, first of all, the fullbacks to get the ball out have to give it to a midfield to get turned, and then the forwards have to depend on getting the passes from them. So if you're going to dominate, generally, if you dominate midfield, you dominate the game.
Yeah.
And I think that was the main thing that I could see, that Italy did that and did it extremely well.
Yeah, and nothing much changed, John, for the rest of the game. And my own opinion is that Giles Southgate took a view that keeping clean sheets was hugely important, more important than scoring goals. I mean, they didn't score a lot of goals. They beat Ukraine 4-0, when Ukraine were too tired, really, and missing players in Rome. But they didn't score goals, and they didn't really take any team apart. And I think his team was built with that in mind. But when you need that little bit extra, it wasn't there. And Harry Kane, let's look at Harry Kane, John. I thought
don't just stop something at the midfield.
Yeah.
Right. If you look at England, they're good players all round.
Yes.
But Phillips and
Rice
were the only two midfield players they had.
Yes.
If you look at the whole squad, Eamon, they had plenty of forwards, they had plenty of defenders, but they were the only two that they had. And they're both good players in their own right.
Yes.
But they're not creative players that can knit things together.
No.
And that was their biggest fault. That was the biggest thing that I felt it, and I felt it before the match. I might have said on your programme that Italy could dominate them from midfield, and if they do, then they're into a different game altogether. I'm not trying to be wise after the match, but England don't have. I mean, in his choice, I mean, he'd about 7 defenders, really good defenders. He'd about 7 or 8 forwards, really, really good forwards. But Rice and Phillips were the only two that he had in midfield, and neither of them are really creative. Neither of them.
Now, John, let me just give credit to Southgate for one of the things he did. He started Sterling in the tournament. He played in every game. He'd had a very, very poor season at Manchester City. Guardiola or someone in the camp there leaked a story that he was for sale. And so, after a very bad season, Southgate kept faith with him, which I wouldn't have done, and he delivered. He was very dangerous. He scored goals. He made goals. And he made that controversial penalty against Denmark, even though I know we disagree on this, but it wasn't a penalty. However, that was rewarded, and that faith was rewarded, and it's right to salute Southgate for that. But there's not much else, John, that we can really salute him for, or is there?
Well, first of all, with Sterling, I mean, I wouldn't have played him. I don't think you would have played him, and
No.
I think we gave him credit for playing. But I tell you, Sterling was back to his old ways yesterday.
He was, yeah. Diving.
He was
Look at the
terrible. He
dive,
never
yeah.
tried a flipping leg.
No,
I mean,
no.
He was terrible. I think with Southgate, I mean, I think obviously he believed in what he was doing, and I think he's an honest guy. I think he's a decent guy. I think he got on well with the players. I think his PR was very, very, very good. There's no doubt about that. And he was right where we were wrong on Sterling up to yesterday.
Yeah.
But we give him full credit for that, Eamon. But you know, again, in my opinion, if you're the manager of a team, you see what you have, you get the best team as quickly as you possibly can, and you play them together as much as you possibly can. Because you never get it perfect in football. There's always things you learn, and you learn. But if you go from the start of the competition, Eamon, and we spoke about it before, he played two fullbacks in the first match, and he played two different fullbacks in the second match. Now, that's totally different. And I think what he was doing was all the time looking at the opposition.
Yep.
Instead of looking at what do we do, what do we want to do, and respect the opposition. So I think there was a wing and a prayer in a lot of the decisions he made, Eamon, and he had very, very good players. It was very difficult for him to pick a bad team.
Right. He does.
So he did. I think he's a decent lad. I think he's a good lad. I think he's a good character. His PR was very, very good. But I think ultimately he went a step too far and was found out in the last match that they played in the final, doing what he did in the Trippier situation.
Yeah, by a very good team, we have to say. Now,
yes,
they went into the dressing room at half time, which is a very important time. You know, you've played in great teams and you've managed teams. That 15 minutes is hugely important because you can look at what's happened for 45 minutes and you can adjust accordingly. I didn't see any adjustment because the second half started the same way, and after 67 minutes and a number of frights, Bonucci got the equaliser. Now there's 23 minutes to go. They deserve the equaliser, there's no question about that. But England now had to respond, and they didn't really respond.
No. Half time is very, very important.
Yeah.
But it's not as important as before you go on the pitch.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
The team that you pick, the first team that you pick should be the pick. Now, there are changes to be made at different times. But if you do what he did and pick Trippier and left out a midfield player, right, he didn't put that right at half-time.
No.
And it was wrong from the start.
It was, yeah.
Anyway, so that's more, okay, half-time is very important, but it's not as important as the start of the match.
Right, no, obviously not. Now,
no, I'm not trying to be funny there.
What he did, 4 minutes after Italy equalised, he took Trippier off. and he put on Saka, who was the player he left out. So he decided, that we have to go for it. We have to be more offensive.
Yes.
But the problem I put to you is this, John. When you've been in a certain mindset for, say, 70 minutes, it's hard to go from that defensive, keep what we have mindset to an attacking mindset. It's just the way human beings are built. You know, you've gone asleep and it's hard to wake up with 20 minutes to go.
Yeah, well, you're changing the whole team, Eamon, in that particular way. You give the opposition a chance to get on top, to dominate the game, to do what Italy were doing at that particular stage. So, like you're whatever time it was, 50 or 60 minutes too late.
Yeah.
Like, in other words, what he's saying then at that time, hang on, we don't need Trippier on the field. Now we're going to compete with them in the middle of the field and all that.
Yeah.
That should have been done from the start of the game.
Yeah. And he didn't. Then the next change he made, Italy stayed dominant. They didn't go defensive on it, John, which, you know, Italian teams have done. It's very much in their history. But they did suffer a blow later when Chiesa had to go off. But what he did do, the next move he made was to take Rice off in the 74th minute and play Jordan Henderson, put Jordan Henderson on. Now, Jordan Henderson, as we know, is a very offensive-minded player. He's a very good player, captain of Liverpool. Even he couldn't generate the drive required to wake England from their slumber. He made very little contribution.
Henderson is good, like Rice is good, and that good. That's what he does, Eamon.
Yeah.
Right. But he's not a Verratti.
No.
He's not a Jorginho. He'll do the best he can. But these fellas got into the game and they were dominating the game. I mean, and the point is with Southgate and this is in his defence, he doesn't have a midfield player of Jorginho or Verratti in his squad.
Right.
Like he's putting Henderson on. Henderson is good at what he does, I mean.
Yeah.
But he's not going to get a grip of the game. He's not going to outdo these guys who were settled into the game and dominating the game. They weren't going to give up on it and didn't give up on it. And this is where the manager came into it, Mancini. I mean, we spoke about this before, I think, on your programme. In our time playing football, if the Italians got in front after 1 minute, they were going to defend for 89 minutes.
Yes.
This fella was different.
He is, yeah.
This fella had him getting up the field, and if they scored, no, we're going to go again. We're not going to be sitting back. Now, they could still defend well, but they didn't overdo it by any means. They were going forward and forward when they had an opportunity to do so. And that was the big change that Mancini brought into the Italian team since he took over, in my opinion.
Yeah. Now, one of the things, John, that was in the Italian team, Chiellini and Bonucci. Chiellini's 37 next month. He's a great character, a brilliant leader. Bonucci's 34. But they were, in my mind, should have been targeted because the pace that Chiellini would need against Harry Kane or against Raheem Sterling more particularly. But there was no pressure ever put on him in the game at all. No.
Well, the only way to put pressure on them, Eamon, is to build it from the back to midfield. To give the likes of Kane and Sterling an opportunity to run these guys.
Yeah.
They never got that,
no.
Eamon. They've never got that because Italy dominated in midfield. They were the ones that were putting England under pressure.
Yeah.
The English defenders under pressure. That's the way to do it. But like England have done well in the previous matches. They have an awful lot of good players, as we know. But they don't have that creative player or players from the middle of the field to do it. Now, I know I'm going on probably a little bit too much about that. But it's so vital for them. That's why, like, Italy didn't have much up front, Eamon,
no,
as
they
we
didn't.
know.
And I want to mention one of the guys who had a nightmare tournament, Immobile. He's a very good player in Italy. He gets his share of goals. He's not prolific. But he and Insigne are really their hopes for goals. But, of course, neither of them really fired, although Insigne got a fabulous goal against Belgium, but neither of them really fired. He took Immobile off and put Berardi on in his place. But they seem to have good players to bring on, and good players who were still prepared to go forward, run forward, pass forward, whereas England, I was watching Harry Kane in the last 15 minutes. He could barely pick his legs up, John.
No, he couldn't. He was knackered, Eamon.
He was,
but
yeah.
See what happens with if you're not getting a supply from midfield, Eamon, the likes of Harry Kane would have made runs, and Sterling would have made runs.
Yeah.
Although I didn't notice much from him. They get tired without getting the ball, Eamon.
Yeah.
You know, whereas Italy didn't have much up front. I mean, if you had to put Sterling at his best and Kane in the Italian team, Eamon,
yeah.
Then you'd see goals. Like what Italy were able to do was dominate the ball from midfield, but they weren't scoring goals, but they still dominated the ball, which was stopping England from scoring goals.
Now, John, England didn't play with any zest, appetite. They looked tired, and they got to the end of the 90 minutes. One of the things that was in my mind from before the game was the way the English nation was building itself up for this moment. The expectation that was on players, young players, some of them, very young, in fact, and we'll come to the penalty shootout. But you and anyone who's played sport at any level would know that feeling when your legs are gone through nervous energy and through the occasion being too much for you. Now, Gareth Southgate gave a press conference at 7:15 on Saturday night with Harry Kane. He came out in the media all last week. He started talking about healing the society, the divisions within society, and all of that stuff. I don't think that was helpful. I think those England players, I don't know, but I suspect the weight of the occasion got to some of them.
Well, it's hard to know, Eamon.
Yep.
It could well be. We don't know. But I think that with the time that's in it, all of the fuss and bother that we would see, it was inevitable.
Yeah. Okay.
It was inevitable. But I like it. I find it hard to subscribe to players getting that nervous, Eamon, when you're a professional footballer and you live for doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, and it's all part of the game. It's like the tennis player yesterday and all the different sports that you're in at that level.
Yeah, it's like the young English girl who played in the last 16 at Wimbledon. She actually had to stop. She was overwhelmed. I want to put it to you because I think we had a conversation about this some months ago. I asked you if you ever went on the pitch and felt that thing of being legless. And I think you said, yeah, once.
Once, yeah.
When was the once? Was it the Champions League final or the Europe?
No, I did it once in playing for West Brom, man, Eamon, in the second division.
When you were player coach, of course, with a lot of pressure on you.
Yeah, well, I mean, it only happened once.
Well, tell us what it was like and why.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. It was just on the day. That's the way I felt. I wasn't particularly. It was a second division match and playing against an ordinary team. So it wasn't. I never felt it, Eamon, in any of the big matches.
Right.
And as you know, I was lucky enough to play in
lots of them.
5 cup finals and win the. So I actually looked forward to them. I didn't play well in all the matches, but I felt okay. And I think when you get to the level that the players are in the Premiership, if you get to that level, Eamon, you've gone through it anyway. You know, you were at Manchester United. You played in the U team, you played in the B team, and you played in the A team. When you're a young fella, now if you can't hold your nerves at that level, you don't. When you got into the Central League team at Manchester, the reserve at Manchester, and I got into the reserve team matches, you were delighted to do it.
Right.
So it's a breeding ground for you to get into the first team.
Yeah.
In other words, you don't get to the first team if you have that type of nervousness. It comes out in the B team and the A team and the U team.
I didn't. I'm taking this personally, but I hear what you're saying. Let's move on, John, to the end of the game and the end of extra time, which really was a repeat of most of the 90 minutes, really. Italy comfortable in possession. Even when they took Verratti off, which they did, they were able to put a very good player, actually a player we'll hear a lot more of, Locatelli, who is a big, strong, goal-scoring and attacking midfield player. However, we come to the penalties, John. Now, this is big time. One of the things said about Gareth Southgate was he was a details man. He was meticulous. Everything was thought out. He'd had psychologists, and he said this on the press conference on Saturday night. I've had psychologists in, or he let it be known, and not only have they worked out who should take the penalties, they've told the people who are taking them what to think about when they're walking up from the halfway line, and that is a long, lonely walk for sure. So everything had been rehearsed, and it was sorted. And now the real biting criticism from my point of view, and I want to know really your point of view is what people want to hear. There is absolutely no way I would have let Saka or Sancho take a penalty. There's absolutely no way I would have asked Marcus Rashford, who'd only been on the pitch, along with Sancho, for 1 minute. They came on in the 120th minute, which is basically the end of extra time. How could such a meticulous planner let that happen?
Well, the first thing that you mentioned there, Eamon, that he had some sort of advisors or mental people in.
Yeah, psychologists.
Now, that is nonsense.
Yeah.
This is total rubbish.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The manager is the psychologist
Yes.
in this game.
Yes.
In this game that we play in.
Yes.
He knows the players. He's been a player.
Yes.
Right?
And he's missed a penalty in a penalty shootout at Wembley.
Himself.
Yep.
Yeah. So when the thing is, that's the amazing thing about football. The manager is everything.
Yes.
Right. He's the coach. He's a psychologist. This is football.
Yep.
This is not ordinary stuff. This is people in the dressing room who are highly paid, and good luck to them. And this is their living, and this is their life.
Yep.
Right. You don't need to know their mental state. I mean, if you know that if their mental state is bad, they wouldn't be there in the first place. This is what you do when you're a professional footballer. And I certainly know that psychiatrists and all the various things do help and are very, very good people who need help. But in professional footballers, right, Eamon, when you're a professional footballer, the manager's the psychiatrist. He judges you. And this is what you do. This is your living.
Right.
This is what you're living. And that for Southgate to bring somebody in to judge who's going to take a penalty and who isn't going to take a penalty, who knows nothing about football, that doesn't live the life of a footballer, is tells you really everything you want to know about Southgate.
Right. Now, the other thing I think that's interesting and illuminating is the fact that Rashford has played very little in the tournament at all. He came on at the very end, about 2 minutes before the end of the whole of extra time, and he came on with Sancho. He put the two of them on together.
Yes,
Sancho's only had a bit of play as well. If you come onto the pitch, this cauldron, in front of 60-odd thousand and the whole nation watching, literally the whole nation watching you, if you come into this cauldron, not having played in the previous 120 minutes, it can't be the same, can it, John?
No, it's certainly not.
He was putting them on to take the penalties.
Been in football. You were a footballer.
Yeah.
But the psychiatrist wouldn't know that.
Well,
that's not his game.
No, but forget about him now. He's gone.
No. But if he's had them in, Eamon, to talk about he's picking the penalty shooters.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's picking them.
You have to talk about him.
I don't know if he picked them. But the thing is, I don't know if the psychologist picked who should take but they were prepared for what to think about when you were walking up from the centre circle and all of that.
But Eamon, whether he picked them or not, that's just as bad.
Yeah.
Has he ever been out there?
No.
Psychiatrist, right? He doesn't know. Okay, he does his business and he's great. And he's great for people who need psychiatric treatment of any description. But when you're talking about a footballer coming from the centre circle up to take a penalty, he doesn't know anything about that.
No.
Okay, he can say this is the mentality you should be in, but he's not a professional footballer, and he doesn't. Every footballer has a different mentality in what they do to overcome the pressure, Eamon.
Yeah, well, now get to the serious part, John.
Okay, but that is serious, Eamon.
I know it's very serious.
If Southgate is doing that type of thing, that is serious because it's telling us what's going through Southgate's head.
Exactly. Now, the serious point is, first of all, the Italian goalkeeper, Donnarumma, who is bloody marvellous, is a big young fella. He's only 22, but he's a giant, and he did brilliantly. But the thing is that the key penalties fell to Sancho and Saka and Rashford.
Yes.
All of whom missed. They're Sancho's 21, John.
Yeah.
Saka's 19. Neither of them have any international experience worth talking about.
Yeah.
And Marcus Rashford, who's a really remarkable young man in many ways, has not had a good season for Manchester United. Shouldn't someone have sussed this on the pitch and said, hold on a minute, I'll take it?
No, I don't think so, Eamon. Look, if what you said is true, and obviously you believe it's true, if the psychiatrist is being involved...
He's the psychologist, he's not a psychiatrist.
Sorry, okay.
Psychiatrist is what?
Well, maybe you could be a psychiatrist as well, but anyway.
Okay.
Okay. So if he's been involved in it and he's inside Southgate's head to do this, Eamon, that's what they did.
Right.
So it's too late at that stage for one of the senior pros to say, hang on a minute.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think you should be taking the penalty. Southgate made that decision before the match, Eamon.
Yep.
He put the players on with hardly having had a touch of the ball because, as you say, it could well have been advised that this is the thing to do from somebody outside the game altogether. Because that would make sense to me as an ex-professional footballer, that the manager would actually do this on his own.
Yep. Well, it didn't turn out well, and
it never does it, Eamon?
No.
If it's preparation, you were talking preparation to take a penalty. Then the preparation that these lads had, the three of them, was dreadful preparation.
Yeah, and that's what cost England the tournament. Quite apart from the 120 minutes of football that preceded it. Just now I mean, there has been, and we both know because we've been on television analysing games, it's extremely hard to go against the grain. And I was going around the channels last night a little bit, and I must say that Giles Southgate is a hero, and Alan Shearer, Gary Lineker, Frank Lampard, all of whom I've got respect for, and Rio Ferdinand indeed, they say that England were superb, that Gareth Southgate has done a magnificent job, and Bob's your uncle. The RTE panel with Liam, Didi and Damien Duff were actually much better. Didi said before the match, I was going to go for England, but when I see the Italian team, I'm going for Italy now. And that's a reference to what you spotted, and we all spotted, Trippier in for Saka, or one of the more offensive players. So it's difficult to say, but I think Southgate has questions to answer.
Well, he has, Eamon. I mean, he's done a big job and a good job in many ways. I think his attitude with the players has been good. I think his PR has been very good. I think he's a good type of individual. But I think he made a huge mistake in the team that he actually picked for the final.
And
he did well getting to the final. I think they had a fair number of breaks and they were at Wembley all the time and all the various things. But he got there, and I mean the hype surrounding it, Eamon, as we've seen, was what it was. I think the panel that I saw, which was Shearer and the lads, went overboard as well. Which, as you know, and we now haven't done it, because when we were doing our stuff and criticising Jack, we were told by the people above us that wasn't the mood of the nation.
Yeah.
Right, but anyway, now we're giving ourselves a pat on the back. It didn't stop us telling the viewers what we believe to be true.
No, I want to go back to Gareth. The decision to give those three young players the responsibility, John, in the circumstances, seems to me to be incomprehensible. I cannot understand how a young lad like Saka, at 19 years of age, who had hardly any experience in professional football at the highest level, he's played a few games, and he's a very, very promising and good young player, how he could be given the responsibility at that age. I also can't understand why Sancho, who's 21, and an outstanding player for Borussia Dortmund, going to Manchester United now, how that responsibility could be thrust on him either.
No, it was, Eamon, we agree. It was a dreadful, unprofessional decision to make with those players. And what I find odd, if what you're saying, I think you believe it to be true, and that he sought information or guidance or advice from somebody outside the game.
He did.
To allow these players to do it.
Yeah.
Now, one thing is very bad. To have to go outside your own situation and job, which is part of the job in a big way, to make those decisions was dreadful.
Yeah.
And to stand by them was just as bad.
Okay.
It was dreadful, unprofessional. You call it whatever you want. It was a very, very bad and decision to make with those lads to take the penalties in such in such a high tempo game and an important game.
Okay, John.
I just can't believe it.
No, that's what he said when he was asked about it, because he has experience in this.
No, I'm not saying I don't believe that. I just don't believe he did it.
Yeah, no,
I can't believe he did it. And even to be seeking advice on a professional situation where common sense, never mind, you don't have to be a professional footballer, to say, these are three young lads coming into it. I haven't even been warmed up hardly in the game to take such important penalties.
Okay, and just a final question, John. Where do England go from here? Because in a way, his template he set out is going to be, it appears, an emphasis on not giving goals away and a hope that some dazzling young forwards, be it Marcus Rashford or Raheem Sterling or Harry Kane or Jadon Sancho, will, score enough goals at the other end. That's not the way to go, really, is it?
No, well, you have to learn as you go along, Eamon. And what I've learned from it, now whether he says the same view, they have to produce creative midfield players that makes the job for the lads up front, because they are good players, Eamon.
Yes.
I think the only thing he's lacking is the creative midfield players that can make the most of the defenders and the attackers.
Yeah, a link man.
And at the moment, they're not there.
Okay, John, we're very grateful to you for that, as always. Thank you. And we both agree, I think, John, that once it got to the knockout stage, the tournament was fascinating and informative as well. Yeah,
it was good. I enjoyed it, and I think most people enjoyed it. And we'd have to say, I think you believe it. I certainly believe it. The best team won.
The best team won. Forza Italia means go Italy. So we're delighted with the result. And John, thank you very much for all your contributions to the last few weeks, and indeed all your contributions for the season. You can have a rest now for 10 days when the Premier League starts again. No, it doesn't start until September, I believe. Thanks very much to John Giles, one of our greatest players. Maybe only George Best was better, and he's been in those situations so many times without the help of a psychologist. And we're grateful to John, of course,